Welcome everyone. Today we are going to learn about one of the most important topics of biology, that is genetics. Genetics is that branch of biology that deals with the study of heredity, variation and gene. Heredity means the passing on of physical and mental information from parents to their offspring or from one generation to another generation. To make it very clear, I will be giving you a real life example. When your relatives visit your home, they sometimes say that you look like your father. It means that some kind of physical information has been passed to you from your father, and that is known as heredity. Now variation. Variation is known to be the characteristic difference between offsprings produced by same parents, or the difference between you and your sibling. One interesting fact about variation is that it is only present in sexually reproducing individuals or sexually reproducing organisms. What happens at the time of fertilization? A sperm of father and ovum of mother, they fuse to form a zygote. Okay, so half of the genetic material from sperm and half of the genetic material from ovum fuse to form a zygote, which is called as hybrid, because it is containing half of the genetic material from father and half of the genetic material from mother. So it would be different because it is containing the mixture of genetic material of father and mother. So that's what the concept about hybrid. Now we will talk about gene. So gene is the inherited factor that determines the biological character of an organism, or gene is that segment of DNA which controls a character. So gene controls a character, and now you should know that gene have two alternative forms. Gene has two alternative forms that are called as alleles. Okay, likewise character also have two alternative forms, and those are called as traits. Now you must know that a character is governed by a gene. So in the same way, a trait would be governed by a allele. So now two things are very clear to us, that gene controls a character. Okay, two alternative forms of genes are called as alleles, and two alternative forms of character are called as traits. So a gene controls a character, and in the same way allele controls a trait. Now we are moving to Mendelian genetics. Okay, in Mendelian genetics we mainly talk about Mendel and his experiments. So Mendel is known as the father of genetics. Mendel did hybridization experiment on a plant known as Pisum sativum. Pisum sativum, popularly known as garden pea. Okay. So Mendel did hybridization experiment on Pisum sativum plant, also known as garden pea. He took over 7 years. He took over 7 years to do the experiment and nearly took 7 pairs of contrasting characters. Now you must be wondering that what are contrasting characters. So I am taking one example. I am taking a character that is plant height. So this character would be having two traits. One would be tall and second would be dwarf. Okay. So now this character is having two traits. One is tall and other is dwarf. So in the same way, he took now six more other traits, 6 more other characters. So now before going on, we have to know some technical terms which are used in Mendelian genetics. So first we will learn about phenotype and genotype. Okay, phenotype and genotype. So what is phenotype? The physical expression is termed to as phenotype. Now tell me that here what would be the phenotype of this plant which is having a tall trait. So it would be having a tall phenotype because it is looking tall. Now what would be the genotype? So genotype simply means genetic makeup of a organism. So here we have taken tall plant, and now suppose that the genotype of this tall plant is capital T, capital T. So capital T are now both alleles of this particular gene for a height, and for a dog plant let it be small t, small t. So now when we will cross these two parent generation, we would be getting a hybrid one, and the hybrid would be capital T and small t, because half of the allele it will get from tall plant and half of the allele it will get from dog plant. So basically now it will be called as hybrid. Okay, and this hybrid is formed in F1 generation. F1 generation is called as first generation where hybrid is formed. Now the genotype of this tall plant is capital T, and dog plant is small t, small t. Now we have known phenotype and genotype. Now let's move on to what is dominant allele and recessive allele. Okay, so now as we all know that the phenotype of this parent plant is tall and dwarf plant is dwarf. So this is the genotype of this tall plant, capital T, and this is the genotype of this dwarf plant. So the hybrid is having, now the question arises that what is the phenotype of this hybrid plant? So the phenotype of this hybrid plant is sure to be tall one, because here the capital T is a dominant allele, because it is able to express itself in the F1 generation. That's why we call capital T allele as a dominant one. So now our definition is that the dominant allele is that allele which is able to express itself in the F1 generation where hybrid is formed. That's why this hybrid which is formed is tall plant. Otherwise, if small t would have been a dominant allele, then this hybrid generation would be dwarf one. But capital T here is a dominant allele, so that's why this hybrid plant is tall. Now these are some of the important things you must know before studying genetics. So I think that these are some of the things which I just told you are clear to you. So thank you for listening and hope you are all doing best. So all the best.